In this video, what we're going to work on is an advanced version for the flat hand view. In a previous video, we had already worked on making a flat hand view, and the flat hand view that I taught you guys was basically a very simple flat hand view, which is perfect for your fashion hands, especially when your hands are only about this big. Just in case you wanted to learn a little bit more about the different fingers and the sizing of the fingers, as well as some placements for the thumbs, I figured I would teach some of you the advanced version so you would know this information as well. This comes in handy if you are going to make a larger drawing of a hand, as well as when you start to use the flat hand for different gestures of your models on the runway. You'll notice that you're going to want to actually know how to do a few different variations of the flat hand view. So let's go ahead and start this now. The tools you're going to need for this video would be the flat hand view that you've already done in the earlier lesson, as well as having your clear ruler, pencil sharpener, a big eraser, and a detail eraser, your number 2 pencil, and then let's also have a red, blue, and yellow color pencil for this lesson. And of course you're going to want some blank paper. So to start this lesson, what we'll do is we'll use the same layout we used from here. And again, what we were doing was we were coming down from the top edge about 3 inches, drawing a straight line, and then we want to come in 1/2 inch from the edge here for our starting point, and then measuring from that new point you want to come out 6 inches to find your full hand, and then move over 1 inch, so this will be 7. And then over here we'll come all the way out to 13. So again, we'll have 6 inches on this side, 6 inches on that side. Now for this flat hand view, we're going to want some more information. Not only do we need to know where's the halfway point and then halfway again so we could find arcs A, B, and C, but heading this way we also want to know the halfway point over here. So on your hands, let's go ahead and divide this up. So for instance, from 0 to 6, the halfway point is 3, and in between that is 1.5, and in between here was 4.5. And these points here, I want you to circle the middle ones so we don't lose track. And then out here, you can write the words finger tips. So now we know that this is the new hand coming from the other side. So move your ruler over so you're measuring out the 6 inches again, and we'll divide it in half. There's 3 here, 1.5, and 4.5. And we'll circle the 3 in the middle so we remember that that's our arcs, this is our wrist, and that's our fingertip. So out here at your fingertips, let's go ahead and draw straight lines. And then here at arcs A and B, which is basically the middle of the hand, and then 1/4 of the distance towards the fingertip, and then repeating it here again, and the middle of the hand as well. Now remember, we want to have the same 1/4 of a hand distance is the same as your wrist. So if you were to divide that in half, take that half measurement, so this is basically 1/8. Then we're going down 1/2, up 1/2, and that's our full wrist. And you can double check by now taking a full 1/4 measurement and just make sure. And again, if you want to use your ruler, since we're already using one here, we know that this is 3/4 this way and 3/4 this way. And that's her wrist. And then let's do the same thing here for the right hand. Now just so we don't get confused doing this, if you recall, this is your model's left hand, this is your model's right hand. So let's go ahead and label these. This is L for left, R for right. Now before, when we were doing our arcs, we were just pretty much just guesstimating how the arcs go. But since we're going to do a drawing that's a lot more technical, this is dependent that your arcs are actually a little more accurate. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a technique to developing the correct arc angles. Now the first one here is going to be your arc A, moving on to B, C, and then going backwards, this is C, B, and A. So again, for arc A, it's not super critical on exactly how you make your arc. So go ahead and put in your arc A now. But once you're ready to do arc B, what we're going to do is here at the top part of the hand, we can have the same arc as A, but as we move along through here, what we want to do is we want to have the correct arc, because later on this is going to be lining up with your thumbs. So this is the new location that we have here. This is this 1/4 of a distance going back towards the wrist. What I'm going to do is I'm going to label this B and put it in parentheses. Because what this is this is a pivot point for that B arc. So if you turn your paper sideways and you take your pencil and you measure from this new B location to the B arc, and as you pivot your pencil, that's how that arc should be traveling. And again, if it's easier for you, you can also measure. So this would be 3 inches out to there, 3 inches out to here, 3 inches out to here. Whatever it takes for you to get this more accurate. So once you have the thumb side of this B arc in place, go ahead and draw that in now more accurately. And again, this is following with that B location here. Let's go ahead and get it over here on this side as well. So again, if we're measuring from this new location here, we're calling it B, we're putting it in parentheses, and we measure out to the actual B arc, it's 3 inches. So as I come down, I'm hitting these locations. And then once we get to the upper part of it, it's not as important, so we could just follow the same thing that we're doing here with A. And go ahead and extend this B arc down a ways, because what we'll do is we'll see how the thumb moves and follows along that. Now before we do the guideline for C, we're also going to follow another arc variation like we did for B. But the next thing that I need first of all is I need those outside guidelines heading back to the wrists. So let's get those now. So remember, we need to go 1/4 of a hand heading upwards, and we need to go 1/2 of her hand heading downwards. And if you want to double check these with your ruler, this is going to be 1.5 inches heading up, and this is going to be 3 inches heading down. And now you can connect that new location back to the top of your wrist. And then of course the bottoms of the wrist. So again, the only thing that's missing now is this C arc. What we're going to do is, here we had a pivot point for arc B. We need another pivot point for arc C. And where that is going to be is where arc A now comes up to hit this outside guideline, circle that and label this C in parentheses. So again, it's a pivot point like we just had here. So over on this side, we're having, here's our arc for A, here's where it's hitting the upper guideline, circle that, and this is C. Now what we can do is, if you measure from C over to the fingertips, it's going to be a weird measurement. So for instance, on mine, it's 3 3/8. And I can take this 3 3/8 and come over here, 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 and this is where arc C will bend quickly to come down and meet B and C, and this was A. For the upper part of it, again, you can just follow like what you've done here for B and A. The reason for all of this, where we're taking these new pivot points and we're really making sure we're getting a specific curve on these, is because in the advanced version, your thumb is actually shortened back further and the webbing is deeper back into the hand. So this will be more accurate to an actual person's hand. Let's do the right side together. So again, here was that arc pivot point for arc C, and the measurement that we're doing right now is 3 1/8. And you can take that and move down, heading towards the thumb. To get the first part of arc C. And then for the upper part, again, we're just doing the same thing as A and B. The last guideline that we need before we start drawing our hand, if you recall, the width of these 3 fingers is about the same width as your flat hand wrist. And so in our guidelines, we had drawn a straight line and called it 7, and another straight line and called it 8. So then we knew about how wide those 3 fingers are. So let's go ahead and get that now. So we need to know the wrist width here. We want the same thing here. And if I recall, so basically it was 3/4 of an inch going up. So I'm just connecting all the way through both tops of the wrists. But if you were just doing it for one hand, out here you would measure 3/4 of an inch up, 3/4 of an inch down. So then you can connect back to the wrist. So now we know that the pointer finger, the middle finger, and the ring finger, all 3 will fit inside this area. And then the thumb will be out here below that, and the pinky finger will be somewhere above that. For the advanced version, what we're going to do now is we're going to really focus on where these webbings are on these fingers, as well as where are the knuckles here on your fingers. Because you'll notice on your own hand that the webbings are not in the same place. So one is higher, one is lower. So it's stair-stepping and curving. The same thing with your knuckles. They have kind of this curve to them, but they also have kind of this stair-step. You'll notice at the ends of your fingers that these have different levels and stair-steps as well. So we want to make sure that our knuckles and webbings are matching what's happening out here at the end of your fingers. So before I start drawing on the left hand, we have our arc curves, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly erase these straight lines that we originally put in here to know where those arcs are going to start from. Because I don't want to get confused with those straight lines now that the curved lines are more important. Now, in order to start to determine the knuckle placements as well as the webbing placements, I want to know what the fingertips are doing out here. So the center of the hand is going to be the center of the middle finger. And the middle finger will go all the way the full distance to this arc C. So go ahead and put in a little half moon shape here for what will eventually become the middle fingertip. Then if you look at your hands, the next shortest finger is this one here, your ring finger. So go ahead and place that one where it's a little bit shorter than the middle finger. Then stair-stepping down, the next shortest one is going to be your pointer finger. So make sure your pointer finger is coming up short of both of these. And again, we're just guesstimating for now that all three fingers will fit in with side of her wrist width. So you can see the ring finger will touch here, the pointer finger will touch there, the middle finger is in the middle of the hand. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to find this webbing turnaround in between the middle finger on both sides, between the ring finger and the pointer finger. Where is that? So basically, if we can find the middle finger at the bottom here, so this would be half the distance between arcs A and B. And then if you come out half the distance towards the guideline number 7, and then half the distance towards guideline number 8, you're going to see a general idea of this would be where the webbing would turn around and come back up to the next finger. So again, it's halfway between A and B, and halfway from the center of the hand to guideline 7, and the center of the hand to guideline 8. Now that you understand that, let me show you just a quick cheater way to find those locations. So if I came to the center of the hand here, and I just did a X in this area, and I did an X in this area, then you can get a really quick location of here's the middle of that, here's the middle of that. The reason I don't like to do this though is because now we have a lot of lines in this area, so at some point you'd have to go back and erase them. But to know that that exists helps for your brain to be able to see it faster. So you would just see the X inside of here, boom. You'd see the X inside of there, boom, and you've got your locations. So if you did put those X's in there, make sure to erase them because I don't want you to have too many lines on here because this is already going to get really busy as we go through this. What I want to do now is, so this was the webbing turnaround on both sides of the middle finger. So in theory, what I could do is I could connect the middle finger back to the fingertips. Now what you should be noticing right away is this is way too thick for a middle finger on a hand that's only this big. And you are correct. What we're doing now is the middle finger is actually widest here at the knuckle, and you'll notice it tapers in towards the webbing. So it's smaller here, wider there, and smaller here. So this, in theory, is what we're going to call a diamond. So turn your paper over, and I want you to draw a basic square. And then if we turn that square at an angle, so the point of the square is at the top, now you have a diamond. Now what we're going to do is, your middle finger is like a diamond where it's wider here, narrow there, and narrow here. But it's a very long, drawn-out diamond. So go ahead and draw a line down here. And in the middle is going to be the corner. So it's going to come down and back. So go ahead and draw a very long, elongated diamond. And this is what we're going to use when we're drawing our middle finger. So come back to this side of the paper. And how we're going to find this is along arc B, at this new middle finger you just drew, I want you to put a dot on both sides. So again, this is arc B at that new middle finger. Then using your ruler, you're going to go from this dot on arc B and go all the way back to the middle of the wrist. And then again along arc B at the middle of the finger, take this, go all the way to the middle of the wrist. Now what this does is it lets your mind see that this is the widest part of the middle finger, and then it's tapering in before you do the webbing turnaround and head back to the next finger. So basically you've already started to draw the inside edge of your middle finger. So if we were going to come back and connect here with the pointer finger, you want to do your webbing turnaround. This is the middle finger heading back out to the fingertip, and this is going to head for the pointer finger here. Now the same thing happens with the pointer finger. It's a little more narrow here, a little wider there, a little more narrow there. So what you could do is you can aim for a dot here on arc B, and then make sure you're tapering as you head back to the pointer finger tip. And then find another arc down here, taper back towards the fingertip. And now we're starting to develop having these finger knuckles. Now another thing you're going to want to notice is the finger knuckles also stair step the same as how our fingertips did. So this knuckle is the highest, that one's lower, and this one's lower. So make sure that as you come down, you're stair stepping down. So for instance, here's the middle knuckle here. We stair step down for the knuckle for the pointer finger, stair step down for the knuckle for the ring finger. Then you can put your dots on there, taper back towards the webbing turnaround, and then taper out towards her fingertips. The next thing we want to find is, where is the webbing turnaround for the pinky finger? If you notice that the two webbings here are at the same level, but once you move to the webbing for the pinky finger, it stair steps down quite a bit. As well, the fingertip itself stair steps down quite a bit, and the knuckle itself is down quite a bit. So at this point, if you were to follow these arcs and make it even a little bit more aggressive than arc A or arc B, then you're able to come down and find here would be the webbing turnaround for that pinky finger. And then we want to come out and we want to guesstimate where would be the pinky fingertips in comparison to the levels of these fingertips here. So then you can find a knuckle here along arc B. Actually, that's wrong. So I just said something about fingertips. And then we want to find the knuckles here for the pinky. And you'll notice this knuckle is really close to the very end of the finger here. So it would stair step down again. Down, down, down. Here's the knuckle. Aim out for the fingertip. Here's the other side, tapering for the fingertip. And then this will eventually just become part of the palm area. So if you go back to the palm that you've already drawn, where H is here at the wrist bone, I dips in, J dips out, and A is back on the guideline, and then it leads right into the finger of the pinky. That's basically the same thing that we're going to do here. A little more of an advanced version is we really want to emphasize that this wrist bone, it truly is a bone that bumps outward. So you can see here, as your forearm comes into the bone, it will bump out and dip in, and then you have the soft side of your hand. So let's go ahead and do an arrow pointing towards that and label this bone. So you remember to emphasize that that's rounded, sticking outwards before you cup in, cut out, and then heading back for A, and then right into that pinky. Before I go in and start to fine-tune the fingertips and the shaping and everything, I want to go ahead and get her thumb in here and the webbing turnaround down here for her pointer finger and her thumb, and then we'll go back and start to fix all of these. So let's do that now. Now you remember on the basic flat hand, we just had the webbing come down to arc A and stop and go out to the thumb. And that was basically just a quick, easy, cheater version of drawing a hand. And then a little bit more realistic was having the pointer finger cut inside of arc A and having the thumb also cut inside of this arc A. On a real hand, here would be arc A, and that webbing is way inside of there. And the thumb is actually a little bit short of all of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the webbing turnaround on the thumb goes well inside of arc A. So here's our arc A, and this would be our webbing turnaround somewhere deep inside of here, aiming back for this pointer finger. The next thing we want to do is we want to establish her thumb. So if we were going to just do a basic thumb, which was just coming out to this area here, again, here's the wrist, it cuts in a little bit, comes out to the guideline, a little beyond the guideline, comes back to A, and then arcs over to B and C. And then you have your thumb, which comes out of there and heads back towards this webbing turnaround. And now you can see, so the pointer finger would come in front of that, aim for that knuckle, the diamond would start to cut back inwards. And this is a very basic layout for the hand before we start to do any fine tuning. One other thing I want to do here on her left hand is just to show you if her thumb was going to come out even further, how would you do that? So what we would do is arc B, as it was traveling from this guideline here, down at the B with parentheses, you would keep following along that. So this would go out, out, out. And the thumb tip would come out here as well. And this part of your thumb right here, this fatty part, would also start to go well beyond this guideline as it's aiming out for this area. Then whatever the thickness is of your thumb here, you would repeat that here as well. And then this webbing turnaround would just aim right back into that. Now we're going to keep both of these thumbs, and later on what we'll do is we'll color them so you can see the difference between the two. Now that I have the hand, everything's laid out and in its place, what I want to do is I want to start to even out the fingers. So for instance, her middle finger is a little too wide. Her pointer finger doesn't look like a flat hand view, it looks like a profile view. And then this pinky got a little bit jaggedy as well. So I'm going to take a minute to clean this up, and you can watch as I do this, and it'll give you ideas for what to do on your hand as well. Now let's talk about fingernails and doing a little bit more refinement here at the webbing turnaround. Something that I like to do here is between the middle finger and pointer finger, I'll leave this turnaround as a little U-turn, just like we have here already. But when I transition from the middle finger to the ring finger and ring finger to the pointer, I like to show a dominance of he's in front of the line, he's behind him, and he's behind him. So I'll do that with the webbing. And what I'll do here is the middle finger will come down and the webbing will cut down in front of the pointer finger or the ring finger. And then the ring finger will just come out of there. And then I'll do the same thing here. The ring finger will be in front of the pinky finger, and the pinky finger just comes out of there. This is very similar to when we were doing the flat hand view and we had the pointer finger is in front of the thumb. It's the exact same thing here. So I'm showing the middle fingers in front of the ring fingers in front of the pointer finger. Now something else is, if we were to start to do some fingernails, again, I would like to start with the middle finger fingernail. Remembering that you have the fingernail, plus there's still some skin on both sides of the fingernail. And now that you've established your middle finger fingernail, then you'll always know to make the pointer finger smaller and the ring finger smaller. At a very small scale, you won't even need a fingernail for the pinky at all, but since these hands are fairly larger, we can go ahead and add one here on the pinky. Now here we have two different thumbs, and what's going on is one thumb is close to the hand and the other thumb is starting to drift away. As your model's thumb drifts away from the hand, it starts to also roll out a little bit, so you'll see less of the fingernail. So what we'll do is here, the thumb that's coming out the furthest, we're going to keep that same profile thumbnail. So you remember we were talking about this here on the basic flat hand view. You had the flat hand view, was like a J shape for the fingernail, and then the profile nail for the thumb was this L shape with a rounded corner. So that's what we're doing here. We're doing this L shape with the rounded corner for our thumb profile view. And then as the other thumb is coming in closer to the hand, the thumb wants to relax and roll towards the hand, so you start to see more of the thumbnail. So what we'll do here is a little bit more of a 3/4 view thumbnail. Also, what we can do is we can start to color the thumbnails so then it's easier. Well, also what we'll do is we'll start to color our thumbs so it's easier to see them. So take out your blue and red color pencils. For the outside thumb here, what we want to do is trace off the lines in blue. So you remember that this is the thumb coming outside the paper. And then you can lightly color that in, trying to not cut inside of the other thumb. And then let's go ahead and get that thumb in red. So it starts at the same place here, but the fatty part is shorter there, turning into the curved part of the thumb, and it ends underneath the pointer finger. So then we can color this thumb in here. Now, since we've been doing a lot of erasing on this, I want to make sure that you understood the diamond technique. So once you have completed this left-hand view, go ahead and come back to the knuckles of the middle finger and connect them back to the center of the wrist. And that way I can see that you understood making the diamond for this middle finger. As well, take a yellow color pencil and shade this area in. So I can see that you understood using the diamond technique on the middle finger. When you're drawing hands, and if you're drawing smaller and smaller and smaller flat hand views, then you don't need to do the diamond technique on the pinky, the ring, and the pointer finger. Just do it on the middle, and the other fingers, you can just have them taper off from the webbings. If we compare this new advanced flat hand back to our first version of the flat hand, and you recall all we did for these three fingers here is we just had them folded back into space. So you can easily see here where at this knuckle bend, and this knuckle bend is where you would come up with these locations to draw the same exact hand buckling back into space. But you would keep this thumb here, which goes deeper into the webbing, which was the last final fix that we had done on this flat hand. The cool thing about knowing this variation is sometimes you'll see your model will have her hand on her hip, and you can use this hand going down onto her leg. If you're doing a hand into the pocket, you'll know where to place the thumb, as well as how far down the fingers go. So if you're drawing a cast shadow for the hand inside of a pocket, you'll have a sense of where all the fingers are at that time. Now that we've finished the left hand, let's go ahead and start working on the right hand. But in this instance, what we're going to do is we're going to do another variation of a flat hand. Now, if you'll notice here, the flat hand that I did was each finger is evenly spaced apart, and we had two variations of the thumb. But realistically, what's going to happen is your model, she's not going to be paying attention to having her fingers evenly spaced. So a lot of times two fingers will be touching each other or even overlapping each other. So we'll do a variation where the middle finger is going to be in front of the ring finger, and the thumb is going to tuck up into the hand, and the pinky is going to drift off, similar to like if you're drinking a cup of tea or something and your pinky is out floating in air. So we're going to do a variation like this. Now, in order to have the fingers move and do different things, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the wrist locked where it is and the middle of the hand locked where it is, and then we'll have the fingers move independent of that. So again, the wrist is going to stay here. This B pivot point is going to stay there, and the middle knuckles are basically going to stay there. So what that equals is we can come in between A and B, and we can find the webbing turnaround again for the middle finger. Now if we come out here, we remember that the middle finger is centered in the middle of the hand, the ring finger is coming over here, the pointer finger is coming over here. But we want to do this thing where the ring or the middle finger is going to drift over a little bit into the ring finger. So what we can do is we can have the middle finger starting to crowd the ring finger, and you're going to want to keep the same width that you've done before and head back towards these webbing turnarounds. So this is the finger that's in front. So coming back to arc B, put in your knuckle joints, and then you'll remember that this is going to taper inwards and taper inwards. Just like when we were doing the diamond technique. Before it does the webbing turnaround. Now the ring finger is going to stay here right along this guideline 7. Remember, that's that wrist width. And the ring finger is going to stair step down. So actually I should draw my middle finger coming all the way out to guideline C. And my ring finger will step down. And remember, normally it would have come into here before it came out. But that pointer finger is crowding it. So now we're only seeing part of the ring finger. But it's still heading down for the same webbing. Same thing that I did here. I like to have the webbing from the middle finger go in front of the ring finger. So I can have the middle finger is tapering in, and then this is curving back over, and that's in front of the ring finger. The ring finger is also going to start to taper in for its webbing turnaround. And remember, we're going to want to follow the same curve as curve A to start to develop. This webbing is stair-stepping downwards. And using the diamond technique, you're going to want to taper in a little bit and then hit your curve. So the ring finger is wider here and more narrow there. The pinky finger, like I was saying, is going to drift out into space, similar to like when you're drinking a cup of tea. So what we can do to have that pinky finger drift out is we want to know where's the webbing turnaround, and we want to know where is that pinky fingertip. So the same stair stepping from here to that pinky fingertip, where is it heading? Somewhere out in this area. And if you want, basically what you could do is you could figure out what would be kind of the middle of that pinky finger, and then keeping in mind that the knuckles of the pinky finger will stair step down. Find your knuckles, trying to notice basically what was the width of your pinky over here. And then the outside edge is going to be aiming back into the palm. And then remember that on her right hand, this is where that bone is. So there's a bone right here. So we need to go over that bone, dig back in for the palm, and head out here for the pinky. Now, since the pinky got so far away from the ring finger, the ring finger is no longer necessarily in front of it. So now we need to have this webbing turnaround here, this little horseshoe turnaround. So the ring finger and the pinky webbing will connect. The next thing we'll do is, I just want this pointer finger to just relax outwards. The same as it's been doing over here. So again, if we're going to follow showing a little bit of a diamond shaping on the pointer finger, again, you want to have these knuckles of the middle finger are here, the ring finger are stepping down, the pointer finger is stepping down, taper inwards a little bit, taper back to the pointer fingertips. And now we're ready to start developing the thumb. For the thumb, we're going to do the same thing where the webbing on the more advanced flat hand view is truly behind arc A. So here I'll darken this back in. This is arc A. And this pointer finger webbing will go back into there. But the thumb, what I want to do is, I want to have the thumb come back up to the hand. And the more it's coming back into the hand, the more it wants to actually bend coming back into the hand. So we're going to introduce the knuckle bend here for the thumb. So if you recall, the thumb is coming out to guideline to the arc B. Here's B. Here's A. So the thumb is coming out here. But as the thumb goes into the hand, it's no longer following that arc of B. It's starting to develop its own arc. And if it helps, you can turn your hand over and you can see where it's heading. And where it's heading is the tip of the thumb is a little bit higher than the webbings here on your fingers. So what I'll do is, here's the webbings on the finger. The tip of the thumb is a little bit higher than that, but it's heading back towards here. So I'll draw a new guideline here for the thumb. So then I can bring the thumb tip up here into this area. And we also want to have that knuckle bend. So again, here we have, looking at the opposite view, here's the thumb tip coming in just a little bit above the webbings. And then there's going to be a knuckle bend here right along arch A. So right there is going to match with right there. So from this point of view, here's arc A. We're going to have the bend on the thumb somewhere in here. And this is going to aim in a little bit before we have the thumb. The thumb tip is out here. So let's get the thumb curving in. This is coming back out. And this part of the thumb is going to come down to eventually become the fatty part of her hand, curving back into her wrist. Now, as your thumb is coming in closer to your hand and you're bending at the knuckle there, you start to see more and more of the thumbnail. So I'm going to continue using the 3/4 view of a thumbnail here on this thumb as well. Now let's just do a little more refinement. So I wanted to take a look at the ends of the fingers start to develop what would be the fingernail. So I'll start out here with the middle finger. And I can see right away that I want to trim some of this middle finger down. Make it look a little more feminine. And then I can add a fingernail for the ring finger. Keeping in mind that part of the finger is missing. It's behind the middle finger. So if you were drawing a fingernail, you're only going to see part of it. The pinky fingernail. It's so tiny you basically don't even need it. And the pointer, I'll round off her fingertips, put in a fingernail. And that's the basics for doing a hand where you start to have fingers on top of each other or bringing the thumb all the way into the hand itself. So if you want, you could just put like a slight little shadow here, as well as a little bit of a shadow here, just to remind yourself that the ring finger is behind the middle finger, the thumb is behind the pointer finger. And then go in and just do any more little bits of refinements, and also always just double check that your fingers are large, medium, and then small over here. And I think that looks pretty good for now. So now we have two variations of a more advanced flat hand view. Keep in mind that when you draw these at actual scale, they're going to be really tiny. So you can do some of the variations of the flat hand view like this, including maybe the knuckles for the middle finger, maybe the knuckles on the pinky if it's sticking out, and then doing some variations of the thumb will help your girls to look more natural. And also, if you have a whole bunch of girls, it'll make them look different because they have different views of the flat hand. What I want to do here also is I want to show you a couple ways that you can use this flat hand view. So I've prepared, basically this is the hip and the waist and the rib cage of a model. And then let's walk through some different variations that you can use this flat hand view. Some things that you can do is working with pockets. So for instance, if this girl is wearing a pair of jeans and she has a Western style pocket and her hand is going inside the pocket, so we can see here this would be the top of her jeans, and then a Western style pocket, and her hand would go relaxed down into this pocket. So you would see her palm and her wrist, and this eventually would connect back out to the rest of her arm. Her hand would come in front of the pocket here. You'd see a little bit of this webbing from her pointer fingers. This is the actual pocket here. The waistband. And this would be her skin right here, her belly button. If her jeans had a button on it, as well as the zipper. Now from this, what we could do is you can see that her hand needs to have some kind of a shadow in here to show how deep it went down into her pant pocket. So using this flat hand view as well as the guideline from C, you'll know that the shadows would be down into here, and you would see some bumps from these fingers here as well as her pinky over here. So then if you were rendering these jeans in color and then you were to come in and start shading things, you would have a sense of where her pinkies are, where her fingers are, and then the rest of the pant would be flat and clean again. Sometimes what a model will do is she'll actually have her thumb tucked into the pocket, but then your hand on the outside. So in that instance, the thumb would be tucked away, but then the pointer finger would come out here to the outside. The middle finger. And her ring finger tucking behind her middle finger. And for the pinky, maybe what I would do is have the pinky come in just a little bit closer into the hand. And then in this instance, what we would do is we would erase the outside edge of the pocket. So then you'll have a flat hand view where her thumb is in the pocket, the rest of the hand is to the outside of the pocket. Another variation that we could do using this first hand that we had drawn together is we could use this as a hand on hip. So you can have where the webbing from her pointer finger and her thumb is going right up against the waist area. And then you would pivot so the rest of the fingers would be somewhere here along the hip. And sometimes the pinky is even a little bit off the hip. But in this instance, what I'll do is I'll have the pinky and all the fingers on here. So what would happen is the thumb here is going to go behind her waist. So we would have the wrist coming out to the thumb, going behind the waist. And then eventually this waist and the webbing become the same thing, and we would come into what would eventually become the pointer finger. If I keep my middle finger right where it is, I might want to do the same thing I did with the other hand where the ring finger is tucking up underneath it. And then having the pinky finger heading outwards a little bit. And remembering that the wrist bone is always on your pinky side, so make sure you find that wrist bone as you're heading towards it before you transition out into what would become her forearm. So then for the pointer finger, a lot of times when girls will put their hands on their hips, so if these two fingers are together, the pinky's out, the thumb is behind the waist, this pointer finger will also kind of take a life of its own as well. So we can come and have that angle out further. And what I would want to do is I want to have a sense of where's that pointer finger heading, and then getting the same knuckle width over here. So then I can position, here's my webbing heading towards that. and then aiming towards the fingertip. So now when I turn off the light, you can get a better sense of her hand is here in front of this. Again, we're getting that diamond shaping here as well as here. On the pinky, I didn't worry about it as much. I just came in from the wrist, transition out, make this taper to a small fingertip, and a little bit of that diamond shaping here for her pointer finger. So then you would go back and you'd finish drawing. Here was the bottom edge of her swimsuit. That's the rest of it here, as well as there. And here's her waist going back up and her hips coming back down. So again, we're just using the flat hand view, and here we've done a hand on hip. Looking at this top part of the thumb here, I think I would trim a little bit away. And this webbing might do a tighter turn. So that's good enough. You get the idea now of how we can use these different hand gestures in different locations and then slightly adjusting the fingers accordingly.